Welcome to Groovy and Grails webinar series from JPassion.com. Today's topic is Grails Security, topic number 11. Today is going to be the last webinar session of this webinar series. We are going to have, as I said a couple of times already, we are going to have a live full-day code camp from July 3rd and July 26th, 4 days. So code camp works like same presentation, but you are going to have a chance to do the exercise, and you're going to have a chance to ask questions, and we'll discuss some issues and things like that. So it's going to be pretty exciting. All right, so let's move on with the presentation. So these are the set of topics that we are going to cover. We're going to mostly focus on Spring Security plugin because it doesn't make any sense to create your own security schemes given that Spring Security plugin provides pretty much all the features you need. So you're going to actually go through the step-by-step for using installing and using Spring Security plugin for authentication and authorization. We'll talk about Remember Me feature. We'll talk about the concept of roles and rules. And Spring Security plugin also provides some helper classes. You can have a tag through the Security Tag Live, and you have a Spring Security service object, and there is also utility. So you can actually see examples of this. We also see controller meta class methods. And we'll talk about Ajax login because it has to be dealt with in a bit different way. And we'll talk about plugin configuration, and lastly, custom login forms. Okay, so let's talk about what is and why Spring Security plugin. Spring Security plugin really simplifies the integration of Spring Security into Grails application. So Spring Security plugin, the Spring framework, has been very popular, and basically Grails is going to use the same plugin in Grails environment. So there is no need to implement your own security schemes. The plugin supports many features, of course, including authentication and authorization. And authentication is login scheme, and authorization is basically access control. And it provides a sensible defaults for many configuration options, but you can customize. It's actually same theme that is actually being used in many parts of the Grails framework. So everything is configurable or replaceable through the configuration. And you can actually configure or customize through the values in the config Groovy file on the config directory. And all those configurations will start with the Grails, the plugins, Spring Security, and things like that. So if you want to actually use a different algorithm, password algorithm, for example, like SHA-512, this is the way that you can configure instead of using a default in the config.groovy file. All right, so let's go through the complete set of feature list. It provides the multiple authentication schemes, form-based authentication, which is a default, and basic authentication, which uses the browser's login screen, login pop-up dialog box, digest authentication, and it also supports certificate-based authentication. It stores the users and roles. Those are domain classes, which means that they have a corresponding tables. And you can optionally also have what is called the request maps in the database. Guarding URLs. So basically, you can have access control to URLs. These URLs will actually have a corresponding actions. So you can actually guard actions or URLs through annotations. There are three different schemes that you can actually specify access control via annotations or request map domain class or static configuration. We're going to mostly focus on annotations because that's the most popular way of guarding access controlling the URLs or actions. Security tags, as I said before, you can have some security tags in your GSP file. And security service, you can inject a security service object. It's called the Spring Security Service object. It's actually genuine service object, so you can inject it and you can use it. So we'll see examples of this. Security events. So you can actually have callbacks on the some security events, for example, successful logon, unsuccessful logon, and things like that. So if you want to actually kind of, build up some audit kind of features in your application, you can certainly use security events. Ajax login, so you can use Ajax and JavaScript to present the login form in a pop-up. So, if you're actually building a one-page application, for example, instead of actually displaying a login page completely separate from your current page, you can use Ajax login so that your current page stays there while the pop-up will actually let the user to enter username and password. Switch user. So you can actually enable a user to switch to a different user without requesting user's password. So it's a pretty powerful feature. Channel security. So you can actually configure URLs for HTTP or HTTPS. IP address restriction. Mostly you're going to use the role-based access control, but you can also actually have IP address-based access control as well. In addition to the role-based access control. Session fixation. It also provides a session fixation prevention. So I think I have a mistake here. It's basically prevents session fixation, the attack. Salted password. Basically, you can have enhanced protection against the dictionary attacks. Hierarchical roles. We'll talk about hierarchical roles later on in detail. So you can have a convenient way of reducing clutter in your request mappings. We're going to actually see examples of this later on, so I'm going to just move on. And account locking and forcing password change. So if a user actually tried to log in unsuccessfully for more than, let's say, 5 times, you can actually lock the account and things like that, or you can force a password change per users. So as you can see, security plugin, Spring Security plugin, provides the whole gamut of features that the typical production environment needs for securing the applications. Now, the features that are not supported by the Spring Security plugin is basically other authentication schemes. For example, like OAuth. So you can use OAuth authentication to allow a user to authenticate using his or her Twitter account or Facebook account and things like that. OpenID, a single ID, could be actually used for the authenticating in multiple sites. ACL, access control list, and LDAP, CAS is a single sign-on. User registration, Facebook, LTLM covers. So these are the features, security features that could be supported through other plugins. Okay? So you can certainly use the Spring Security plugin for core security schemes, and if you want to actually support these other authentication schemes, then you can actually have other plugins on the top of Spring Security plugin. So we're going to actually cover OAuth based security in another presentation. All right, so let's move on to step-by-step guide of using Spring Security plugin. It's very simple. So it involves 3 or 4 steps. First, you have to install Spring Security core plugin to your application. And then you're going to generate user or role domain classes and other files using S2 quick start command. So once you install the core plugin, it will actually provide S2 quick start command. So by using S2 quick start command, you can create user and role domain classes and other files. Again, we'll take a look at each of these steps in detail. And then you can actually create user and roles for testing purpose. So we're going to actually create testing users and testing roles in this step, you can certainly use Spring Core plugin. Also has a accompanying UI, Spring Core, Spring Security, the UI plugin that actually lets you actually create users and roles. Okay, that we are not going to actually use. We're going to actually just initialize these the users and roles in the bootstrap.groovy file, and then you can secure URL or actions. Okay, meaning providing access control. So let's talk about each of these steps in a bit more detail. So first, installation of the plugin. So you can install the plugin in two different options. A recommendation is to specify it in your build config.groovy file like this, but you can also actually install it at the command line. So you say Grails install plugin, and then you specify the name of the plugin along with the version number. If you don't specify the version number, it will install the latest version. Okay. So once you have installed the plugin to your application, then you can use S2 quick start command. So plugin once installed provide this utility command. So the way you're gonna use the S2 quick start command is Grails S2 quick start, and then you provide a package, okay, that you're gonna use for your domain classes. So domain class is whatever domain class name you want to use. Typically people use user, and domain class for role, they use role. Okay, but this could be something that you can define your own. You can say secure user or secure role. I mean, it's completely up to you. And of course, a package is also completely up to you. So this is actually what you actually provide. Okay, here I'm actually using com.jpassion as a package, and then the name of the user domain class is going to be user, and the role domain class is going to be role. Okay, all right, and it does actually generate these domain classes as I said before, like this. Okay, and it also actually provide join class. So user and role, they have a many-to-many relationship. So as we learned before, for many-to-many relationship, you have a domain, the join class, right? So it's going to create a join class, in this case, user role, the domain class. Okay, and that's a join class, joining user domain and role domain. And it also provides GSP files and controllers. So it will create login controller.groovy file. So this is a controller in which it will have multiple actions. Okay, for example, the auth and things like that. And so this login controller contains actions for login, and log out contains actions for logging out. And the auth GSP file, this is the this is the page that prompts the user to enter username and password. And deny.gsp page is basically 4.3 error page. So all these files are actually generated by running S2 quick start command. Okay, so you're gonna actually take a look at these files in detail, getting hands on that. All right, now you want to actually create some users and roles and user roles for testing. Okay, so here we are going to actually create roles. So we are going to create a role object. So role object should have authority. So in this case, authority, this is basically role. So I'm creating one role called the role admin, and I'm also creating another role called the role user. Okay. All right, so we created two role object, okay, and we save them, and then we created one single user in this case. So we create a user, and the user domain object has a username property and password property, and you also actually have to set enabled true. So otherwise, this user is not going to be logged in. Okay, so you have to make sure for testing purpose you have to set enabled true. Okay, so we created one user, and then we are assigning roles to users. So we are assigning admin role to this test user by using create command of user role domain class. Okay, all right. So we have test users and test roles. Now, the last step you are going to do is to secure your URLs or actions. So, as we talked about, there are three different options, and we're going to mostly focus on option one, basically using secure annotation in your control actions. So in this case, this update action is going to be access controlled, meaning using this secured annotation, meaning this method will be accessible only to users who belong to user role user and role admin. Okay, so both of this should be satisfied. You can actually specify the access controls via static map in config Groovy file as well. So you can specify all the URLs, and then you specify the rules and the roles and the rules. So this is something we are going to actually talk about in a few minutes. So those are actually what is called the rules. Okay, all right. And third option is actually using request maps, but that's something that we are not going to actually talk about in this presentation. All right, so let's do our first exercise. Exercise 1. So in this exercise, we are going to actually do step by step the usage of Spring Security Core plugin. Okay. First, let's create a project. So we are going to create a project called the security app. Okay. So I have already created security app here. Okay. And then we are going to create a domain class. So we are going to actually create the domain class with the domain name of student. Okay, so let's create a domain class. New and domain class. And JPassion and student. And we're going to actually add a very simple set of properties. For example, in this case, we're going to add a name and age, and we're going to have some constraint. Then we're going to have a to string like this, very simple. So let me just copy this code. Okay, and make sure you save it. Okay, and then we are going to generate controller actions and the views using dynamic scaffolding. So we are going to generate all. Okay, on the student. Okay, so we are going to generate all new and generate controller and views. So that's basically generate all. Okay, and we specify the name of the domain, JPassion and student. Make sure you save the student domain change, otherwise it's going to generate the student without any properties. Okay. All right. So we did that. All right. So we created a very simple Grails application. Now we are going to install the plugin. So we are going to actually install this plugin at the command line. Okay. So you can actually run Grails install plugin security Spring Security Core at the command line, or you can do that within the Eclipse. So in order to actually get the command line window, you can actually press the Control Shift Alt G. Okay, the Control Alt Shift to G, then you get this command. Okay, so here you're going to actually say Grails install plugin Spring Security Core. Okay. So once it's installed, the security, so it does in fact have some information. So now next run you can use the S2 quick start. Okay. So that's basically what we're going to do. So here you have to decide what is the name of your package, what is your package, and what is the name of your user domain class or role and role domain class. Okay, so we're gonna just use the simple, as I said before in the presentation, com.jpassion as a package, and the user as a user domain class, and role as the role domain class. Okay. So S2 quick start. So I'm going to just copy this. Control Shift Alt G, and okay, and create. So we're going to actually take a look at the files that are created. So if you actually, once it's created, you can actually see it created role domain class and user domain class and user role, the join domain class. And then we also have, it also created these controllers, which contain some actions, and it also generate the view files. Okay. All right, and it also actually changed it also added some configurations to the file. So let's take a look at that. So let's see the domain class that are generated. So this is role. Okay. So role has authority property. Okay, and the user has a lot more information. It has the username and password and enabled and so, basically username and password, those are the things that that will be actually initialized whenever you are creating a new user. And user role is basically a mapping. Okay, so it has the user and role. Okay, all right. Now let's take a look at the controller classes that were created. Okay, so here login controller class. So it does have the index action, and it does have auth action. So this auth action is basically showing the login page. Okay, and so it actually construct the view is auth, and it actually create the post URL. Okay, and then it actually passing those post URL and remember me parameters. We'll talk about this remember me parameter later on. So these are the things that have been sent to the auth view. So if you actually take a look at the auth view, so that is actually on the here auth.jsp page. So these are the files that have been created by S2 Quick Start. So this auth.jsp page is the page that actually display the login name and the username and password. Okay, and you can see it's actually getting the post URL from that auth action. Okay, and so this is basically and request parameter. So that's something actually coming from the action as well. So this is basically displaying username and password the page. And if you actually take a look at the config file, so let's go to config file. It added these three lines of configuration. So domain class name is user, and authority class name, that's a role, is role, and authority join class name is user role. Okay, and here you can actually add a lot more configuration, configurations to customize your security plugin. All right, so we have just created all these files using that command line tool of the command line tool called the S2 Quick Start. Okay, now we are going to create users and roles. This is actually something that we're going to actually use for testing purpose. So let's take a look at the code. So we are going to change the bootstrap.groovy file. So we are going to, yeah, so this is exactly the same code that we have seen in the presentation, except we created two users. So we created user 1 and user 2, okay? And user one will have both admin role and user role. User 2 will have only user role. Okay. So let's change this code, bootstrap groovy file, and you have to import all these classes. So I'm going to just copy the whole thing. Okay, save the change. All right, so now we have created user objects and role objects, and also assigned the user to a particular set of roles. Now we are ready to specify our access control. So what we want to do is, for this dynamic, this is not dynamic. The scaffolding is actually static scaffolding because we actually generate the code. So what we want to do is, for any operation, for example, index a list, we want everybody, we think everybody should be able to do it. For changing something on the server, we want to make sure only a user that belongs to a role user can do it. For example, create is going to be accessible only to users who belong to role user. Same thing with save. Okay. And for edit, same thing, role user, and update. Okay, role user. For delete, we want to allow only a user that belongs to who belongs to role admin. Okay, so very simple access control. So let's do change this student controller. So student controller. So we are going to add here and save, same thing, and show, we want everybody should be able to do it, and edit, we want only users who belong to role user, update, okay, same thing. And for delete, we want to make sure only the users who belong to admin can do it. So we're going to say admin like this, okay, and we have to import this secured class. Okay. All right. So we just change controller class so that we now have access control implemented to the actions. All right. So let's actually run the application. So the first, we're going to actually see whether index and list will prompt user to log in. It should not, because anybody should be able to do it. Okay. So let's run the application. So we're going to try index and list, and then we're going to try to create a user. So when you try to create a user, it should actually prompt us to log in, because create a user should be able to be done, so that is accessible only to users that has the user login, role user. So authentication has to be done first, and then once authenticated, you should be able to do it. If you actually provide the wrong username and password, it will actually indicate authentication failed. Okay. All right. So let's try this. All right. So let's try to student controller. So this is actually a list. So list should be able to be done, without prompting a user to log in, right? Because that is the accessible to everyone. Now, if I try to create a new user, it will prompt a user to log in. So this page is actually coming from the auth.gsp page. Okay. All right. So I'm going to actually try to log in with some junk user. So let's see what happens. So it should actually say, sorry, we are not able to find a user with a username and password as expected. So this time I'm going to actually use the correct Sang username and password, Sang, and log in. Now it should actually log in, and then I should be able to do create the student. Okay, so I was able to create a student. Okay, and I should be able to edit as well. Okay, because I'm already logged in. Okay, so I can change the age to, I should be able to update. Okay, now if I try to delete, then it will not actually let me do it, because you are not authorized to view this page. That means, I should not be able to do a delete, because delete is accessible only to users who belong to admin. Okay, so I'm gonna actually log out. So here you can say log out. So it's actually going to log out controller, and then it calls the index, that action that logs me out. So I'm actually logged out. So let's try to log in as admin this time. So here, let me try to create a user, and I'm gonna log in as admin. So these username and passwords are set when I created an admin user in the Bootstrap Groovy file. So I log in as the admin. Okay, so let me create the brand new user. Okay, now I should be able to let me see whether I can update. Okay, update it. Now if I try to delete, I should be able to delete as well, because I belong to the student 2 is deleted. So I belongs to admin, the role. Okay, all right. So that's pretty much exercise 1. So let's see the end of exercise. Yeah, so these are the steps that we just did. Okay, one last step we want to do is, we have created a user domain class, and we also have a student domain class. And typically you want to have, student to extend the user. Okay, so for now, student and user, they are in fact the different domain classes. So that's not what we want. We want the student to extend the user. So let's do that. So we are going to actually go to student domain class, and let's extend user. Okay, and then we are going to modify Bootstrap Groovy file, so that instead of creating a user, we need to create the student. Okay, so you're basically changing this code. So here, when we create a student, we provide all the information, name and age, that's from a student properties, and the username and password, that's actually from user class, which is the parent class of student. Okay, so let's change that code. Yeah, I'm gonna just copy these 4 lines. And we have to import. Okay, so we just import the student. Okay, all right, save them all. And now we're going to actually rerun the application, and it should work exactly the same. Okay. All right, so let's actually try. So we're going to go to security app and click this one. Yeah, so we should be able to list them all because nobody is required to log in. Now, if I try to create a new student, again, it behaves as expected. So if I log in as a Sang, and I should be able to create one. Okay. Yeah, so it works exactly the same as previous steps. Only thing we have changed is the student class is an extension of user class. Okay. All right, so that's it. So let's move on to the next topic, which is remember me and roles and rules. So remember me is something that you probably know already. So basically Spring Security plugin supports this remember me cookie, so that users are not required to log in with a username and password for each session. So once you have done, once you check the remember me checkbox, basically even if you restart the browser, because this cookie is actually in the browser's cookie area, you don't have to re-log in. Okay. So basically, this is again provided in that GSP page. Okay, so you probably have seen this remember me the checkbox. Okay. All right, so let's do this remember me exercise, which is the 2.1. So if you take, so let's take a look at the settings. For now, if you take a look at in Chrome, you can actually see all the cookies, from various servers. So we are interested in cookies that are saved for this local host. So I'm going to actually go to settings and then go to show advanced settings, and then click the content settings, and then you can click all cookies and site data. And then I'm going to find out localhost. Okay, so here I have two cookies. So I have two cookies. Those are all sessions. Okay, so that's fine. So I can just leave them all, or just I can remove them all. What I want to actually show you is basically once so let's actually take a look at the documentation. So, basically there is no cookies from localhost. Now, what we want to do is now when we create the new user, it will prompt us to the enter username and password. This time we are going to click the remember me, and then this will create cookies. Okay, so if you actually take a look at the localhost, then you can see Grails remember me cookie is being saved. So even if you restart your browser, this cookie will be used to authenticate the user to the server, in this case localhost security app. So user does not have to re-log in. Okay, so that's basically what it does. In this case, close all browser instances and log in. So let's try that. So we have to actually log out first. Security. Okay, so we logged out, and now let's try to log in. So when we try to, you can actually log in, basically calling login here as well. Okay, and here I'm going to say Sang, and if I click remember me, at this point I'm logged in, and then remember me cookie is actually created. So this time let's actually go to here, and if I go all cookies and site data, and let's search localhost, and you can see two cookies. Now you can see Grails remember me cookie is actually created. Okay, like this. So this cookie will be used to authenticate to the user, to the server. So even if I restart this browser, that cookie will be used to authenticate the user to the server. Okay. All right. So that's I'm not going to actually do that. So you can certainly try these things out. Okay. All right. So next topic is roles and rules. So we have seen roles already, and basically you can specify this access control using secured, and you specify roles like this. Okay, roles, role user, and role admin, and things like that. So this is something that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, which is called the rules. Okay, so access control, you can combine roles and or rules, and roles have to be defined per application, and these rules, however, are built into Spring Security so that you don't have to define them. Okay, so role, something that you have to actually create an object of it and save into the database. However, these rules are already defined for you. Okay, so you can think of these as kind of flags. Okay, so let's talk about the rules in a few minutes. Before we move on to the rules, let's talk about hierarchical roles. So, so far what we have done is that we created roles individually. So we have role admin and role user and role, things like that. However, if you define, multiple roles like this, and what it means is that this action is available to any of these roles. Okay, yeah. So I said and, right? I should have said or. It's or operation. Okay. So instead of actually specifying all these things, if you want to actually see the relationship among these roles, you want to have, someone who has the super admin should have a role of finance admin. The finance admin should have a role of role admin, right? Okay, so this is basically you can define these hierarchical roles in the config.groovy file like this. Okay, and then you can specify a single role, and that actually implies all. Okay, so that's hierarchical roles. All right, now built-in rules in Spring Security, as I mentioned before. So these are these are kind of flags. Okay, so you can use along with the roles. So three built-in rules: authenticated anonymously, so signifies that anyone can access URL. So it's just like not specifying the roles. And authenticated remembered, so requires a user to be authenticated through remember me cookies or explicit login. Okay. Now this is actually something we're going to actually play around. Is authenticated fully. That means regardless whether that is the remember me cookie or not, user is required to log in. Okay. So even if a user click the remember me, if an action is specified with is authenticate fully like this, so in this case, this personal action is going to be always, is going to prompt the user to log in, regardless of the presence of the member key or not. Okay, so those flags could be used along with the roles. All right, so let's talk about the roles and rules. So what we're gonna do is for create, this time we are gonna actually specify authenticated fully. Okay, so I'm gonna just copy this one. And in this case, regardless of remember me cookie, it will always prompt the user. Okay, so let's student controller. So create. Okay, we save them. Okay, now the here. Even if so right now we actually logged in, right? Okay, so I should be able to do it. Okay, but so we have to actually log out first. Okay, now the remember me is that if I restart the browser, I should be able to do perform create student without relogging in. Okay, however, in remember me, if I actually restart, it will actually ask me to log in regardless. Okay, so that's basically, so since I have to actually restart the browser, I'm not gonna do it. It will just, let's just try that without log out, and here, and student. And yeah, so when I try to create it, this is pretty much the same operation. So it doesn't really show this, fully authenticated things. Okay, but yeah, hopefully you got the sense of how that works. So so basically, you're gonna actually restart the server, create a new student, and then yeah. So basically, it actually calls the login full action. If you actually go to login controller. Instead of actually calling auth, it's going to call full. This one. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. Helper classes. Security Tag Lab. So the core plugin, the Spring Security plugin, provides GSP tags in the form of tag lib. And so you can use those things in your GSP file. So these are the examples. So you can actually, by the way, the prefix, the convention is SEC, and you can actually use if logged in. So if user is logged in, then you want to specify this. You want to actually have this one to be displayed. If user is not logged in, then you want to actually specify this. So for example, in this case, I want a user to log in when user is not logged in. So here we provide a link to log in. So the controller is logged in and action is auth. If user is logged in, then we want to actually call the logout controller action. Okay. You can also display inner body of content if only if all of the listed roles are granted. So basically you can also use if all granted. Okay. So if the user belongs to all these roles, then you want to display the stuff. Logged in user information, you can specify the username. Okay. Again, this is pretty similar to if logged in and if not logged in. And access expression, whether user has a role or not. Okay. And so access this URL. When the user has this access to this, then you want to display this. So you can actually have this tag live tags in your GSP file for various set of controls. Helper classes, Spring Security Service. So you can actually Spring Security Service is a service object, so you can inject it in your controller or tag live or even in domain class, and then you can actually call the methods or properties. So in this case, I can actually find out the current user of that is logged, who is logged in. Here I am I'd like to find out all the access control. So we want to find all the authorities, meaning what roles this particular user has. Okay. And here we want to find out, for example, same thing, the authorities. You can actually also find the principal object, and from the principal object you get the username field, and you can also actually get the authorities, meaning collection of the roles. Helper classes. So the Spring Security plugin also provides Spring Security Utilities class. So it does have a several static method you can call. So you can actually call the authorities roles. It will actually generate array of the roles. Get principal authorities. Retrieve the current logged in users authorities. Okay. So basically so it is set up the utilities that you can actually use. Controller has meta class method as well. So is logged in, get principal, or get authenticated user. So if you take a look at an example like this, you can use is logged in. You can use either this one or this one. Okay. So you can actually, in this case, we are using it as a property. In this case, we are using it as a closure. All right, so let's do exercise 3, helper classes. So, when we actually are logging in, logging out, we don't actually have any indication whether, in fact, the user is logged in or not. So that's kind of inconvenient. So what we want to do is, in the main GSP file, this is a layout file, we want to actually display whether user is, in fact, logged in. And if the user is logged in, I want to actually display the username. So we want to display the username. Okay, so this is, if user is logged in, I want to display the username. Okay, and also provide the logout link. If user is not logged in, then you want to actually provide the link for the logging in. So I'm going to just copy this code, and then we're going to change main.jsp the layout file. So here, so on the body, you can actually have this one any place. I'm going to just have it here and save the change. And then let's actually refresh the page. Okay, so if I refresh the page, you can see I'm logged in as a Sang. Okay, and then I can log out. Okay, so if I log out, then I have a login link. So I can log in, and let me just log in as admin user. Login. Then you can see I'm logged in as an admin, and I can also log out. Okay. All right, so that's basically what we just did. Spring Security Service Object. So here we are going to, we are basically check whether the user is logged in or not. If the user is logged in, then we want to display the, you want to get the user object, and then we want to get the authorities, and then we want to actually get the username. So we want to display all those things. Okay, so we're basically calling current user and authentication, and then the principal, principal. Okay, so let's just copy this code, and we'll change the controller class. Just add on here. So, basically we inject a security service, and you're basically using it. Okay, save them all, and now let's try to, so let's actually call. So we actually added this some action, the action, right? So we're gonna just call this one, that action, and basically display. I am logged in as admin. Username is admin. Authorities, it belongs to role admin and role user. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about the Spring Security utilities. So here I'm going to actually create another action called, we want to actually see all the roles. So we're going to actually use these utilities and call authorities to roles, and it will just return the string value of it. So let's just copy this second action, add it here, and we have to import this, save the change, and we can call this some actions, and let's see. We save the change, and let me see. Let me see. Am I logged in? Yeah, it's logged in. So I'm logged in as admin. So when I call, let me just make sure that is the case. So I'm logged in, and then let me see, student controller some action 2. So basically it calls this, and no, student. I hope this is the some action 2. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's actually not displaying. Am I running? Yeah, it is running. I am a little bit puzzled. So it should actually display 2 roles as I actually documented here. Okay. I'm doing something wrong somewhere. Okay, so I'm gonna just move ahead since we got 7 minutes. Let me just make sure I cover the rest of the topics. Okay, Ajax login. So why Ajax login? So what we have seen so far is that whenever a user has to log in, a completely different page is being displayed, and it's not really good UI. What you want to do is that instead of actually moving to a completely different login page, you want to have a kind of pop up to be displayed, so the user kind of log in, and then user can still see the current page. So that's where Ajax login comes in. Okay, so switching to a completely new login page from current page is not desirable user experience. Okay, so in this case, what has to happen is that whenever you're actually performing Ajax operation to the server will actually send back. So you have to actually do a little bit tweaking. So let's actually see how things work. So whenever you're using some Ajax utilities, whether it's a Dojo, a jQuery, or a prototype, it will actually add the header called the X requested with header, which basically indicating this is an Ajax call. Okay, so client actually send the request in Ajax, and the server should not actually send back the complete page, right? So what we have seen so far is that complete page. So when the server, Grails Security plugin, detects the request is AJAX request based, the login, then it won't actually send some JSON data instead of the complete view page. Okay, so that's basically what you're talking about. Most AJAX libraries include this header field. So instead of showing full pages, login controller is going to, has JSON generated method called the AJAX success, AJAX denied, AJAX fail. Okay, that generate the JSON data and send back to the client. So the client will actually use that JSON data to do whatever it has to do. So basically, that's what you're talking about. So if you take a look at the login controller, you can see it does have AJAX AJAX fail, AJAX auth AJAX. Okay, so what happens underneath is that it will actually send back this unauthorized 4.1 to the client, and then client will actually do something. It will use the JavaScript code to perform the login operation. I don't have an exercise on this one. Something I have to actually build. Okay. Plugin configuration. So as I said before, you can actually change the config.groovy file to configure your behavior of your plugins. Okay. For example, like change the default login. So what if you want the user to actually go always to a consistent location after logging in, then this is something that you can specify. So these are the things that you can actually configure in the Spring framework. Right. So same thing you can specify in the config.groovy file. So default login page and the default login failure page. So if the login failure, then you can actually specify where the user is supposed to go. So in this case, we are always going to the top. All right, custom login fields, custom login forms. So if you take a look at the auth.gsp page, basically this is the page that was generated by the plugin utility S2 Quick Start. And if you have your own custom page, basically you can actually kind of simulate of this. Okay. The things that you have to make sure you understand that the form has to be post command, and the form must be submitted to JSpring security check, and the username has to have a name of J underscore username, and password should have a J underscore password. And remember me, field should have a name of this. Okay, so these are something that you have to follow. Okay, and this again, auth.gsp file is an example of it. Okay, and so you can take a look at this example, and you can just create the custom login page. Okay, all right, so that's the end of today's presentation. So let's